You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal, and he has been going out to practice for all of those 5 periods every single day. How you doing, Michael?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. We are getting close. Let's see, Saturday is a week from week 0. Camp basically ends. Is that Monday or is it next Monday?
Not exactly sure what their schedule is this year. I would have to imagine probably earlier rather than later, just with the way they've handled things so far. I mean, we have our access starts dwindling a little bit next week. We have like 3 days. We've had 4 the last few weeks. So I still think it's technically camp next week, but it's definitely starting to wind down. Yeah,
it's the first day of class next week or the week after?
I want to say it's the week after.
Okay.
But they're already starting to come here. You go in Starbucks and you see a billion people.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I'm sitting here, and Florida started school like the end of July.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's like, what is going on? Like, they used to threaten us back whenever I went to school. It was like, hey, year-round school is right around the bend. And everybody's like, no, we need our summer. And like, now it's getting earlier and earlier and earlier.
Awful. I would not, if I had to go back to school in July, I would be very upset.
So, Deion Smith Watch. Where are we on Deion Smith Watch?
Still watching. we're still looking. It's obviously there's been a lot of stuff. I think was it Feldman who had a tweet the other day that said he was going to be at practice or something, or practicing soon. So a couple other people confirmed it. So, I think that was Wednesday was the first practice we were going to be able to see. And he was not out there. And I understand these situations are fluid. But he has not practiced yet, at least from what we've seen. They might be hiding him inside for whatever reason, but at least for the outdoor 5 periods that we've seen, we take roll, right? And we look to see, who's there, who's wearing a black jersey, who's not there, and no number 6 on offense has come up those stairs yet. But he's there. I mean, he's on campus. It's just a matter of when they can get him cleared.
Yeah, and let's tinfoil hat putting it on. He still has to do acclimation days. So him running around in just a helmet, maybe they just don't want the press to see him just running around with a helmet.
I mean, that would not be surprising given how they like to play things close to the vest. But yeah, we have not seen him doing any team activity stuff, or at least seen him out there during the portion of practice that we are privy to.
Yeah, and the thing that I tell people on my show is like, he's a wide receiver. He's played in college systems before. You're not going to take a brutal thing in the playbook to get him ready to go. By the Kentucky game, he's going to be fine, even if he is arriving the first day of school.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't think they're going to need him early in the season anyway. So get him acclimated, all that kind of stuff. But I keep like refreshing the online roster because that's usually a good sign. Because the second it goes through, then they update the roster and stuff. But no such luck so far. I wake up every morning and do that. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm just looking for that number 6 to pop up and everything will be fine. And then you look down, it's like TJ Daugherty. Okay, don't get disappointed about that, but we're looking for something else.
Yeah, or I search by name, by last name. I'm like, maybe he's wearing a different number, but there are no Smiths that I know.
It would be so Lane Kiffin if he was like at number 43. That would be the most Lane Kiffin thing ever.
It would be pure art.
Yes. So what are the main takeaways from today's practice?
It's where we aren't seeing a ton, but I guess for me, the things that I'm looking at have kind of been things I have been looking at is like, what are the offensive line combinations? That seems to be like the big question of like, you have all these pieces, but how do they fit? And they just have a lot of guys they're using in different spots. And I legitimately don't know what it's going to look like come, August 31st. And that lineup might not be the final lineup anyway, because, it's Furman, with all due respect. But I mean, like, you have Jaden Williams working at left tackle some days. Some days it's Diego Pounds. Some days, Jaquan Scott's at center. Caleb Warren has been wearing a black jersey the last few days. It's there's just so many guys now. The two Washington guys, but you also bring back, a lot of talented guys that have played at Ole Miss. There's just so many possible combinations, and I know that they want to rotate during the year. They want to keep guys fresh and have depth, and Charlie Weiss talked about that a little bit. But I think at the same time, you probably like to know who your top five is.
The one thing that Julius Beulow, when he was talking today, is like, one thing, this offensive line is going to be big.
Yeah, that was really interesting because obviously, he played on the best offensive line in the country last year with, a lot of really good players. And he said he had never played next to someone who was as big as him. And he was referring to Micah Pettis. He's not used to having somebody that large next to him. I did think that was really interesting perspective. Just because I asked him, you've been on the best offensive line in the country. What sorts of qualities, do you see that could, help Ole Miss get to that level? And he said, well, we're really, really big. And he brought up, Micah Pettis and stuff like that. So it is really interesting, again, coming from a guy who has seen really good offensive line play. That's got to be pretty reassuring.
Yeah, and like I said, it was the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. Any idea of how is Nate Kalepo? I know he had issues, concussion protocol early in camp. How is he adapting now?
He's been in there. Yeah, I mean, he and Beulow have both been in there. Obviously, again, a lot of rotating pieces, but I think that first week was when he was kind of carrying around his jersey, and then maybe last week he kind of got it at the end of the week. But he's I think he might be wearing a black jersey, but he's in there for reps. Mm-hmm. So he's going.
Yeah, the main thing that I tell people is, like, if you're in a black jersey, that doesn't necessarily mean you're injured. You could be, but they could also be doing load management stuff on you.
Exactly. And again, with guys like that who have started so many games, I don't know, they've probably figured out the playbook by now. They've been here a while. You probably don't really need to give them the sort of reps you would for a younger player.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we will continue to talk about fall practice and including 12 personnel. Music to my ears. Anyway, Game Time is the place to get your Ole Miss tickets with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying your Ole Miss tickets. Vaught Hemingway does not have a bad seat in the stadium, but Game Time makes it to where you can see exactly what the view will look like wherever you sit before you buy the tickets. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They have the best customer service suite that I can think of. To take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And I might be able to help you out getting tickets as well. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel, program for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. One thing that's really cool, Michael, Daquan Wright got in there and he started talking about 2 tight end sets and 12 personnels. And on my show for the better part of the last 18 months, I've just thought about what 12 personnel could look like in a Lane Kiffin offense with everything that is going on. Did he sound like somebody that's like, hey, I want 12 personnel to get me on the field because Caden Prieskorn is obviously the alpha in that room? Or is he 12 personnel is like, hey, this is really a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the term he used is, 2 tight ends on the field in this offense can quote unquote, it's scary. And again, like you look at what Lane has done with tight ends historically, and it's, you go back to Alabama with O.J. Howard, you go back to Harrison Bryant at FAU, Kenny Yeboah, you've got all of these guys, and Caden Prieskorn is obviously the man in that room. But as Wright put it, they do different things well, and I think in a perfect world, I think this is what we envisioned when Michael Trigg got to Ole Miss, in terms of having guys with 2 different skill sets, a guy who can line up out wide, which is what Wright said. He says he's a guy who you can spread it out. Obviously he can block, but and whereas Caden Prieskorn is more of that inline guy, but of course he can line up outside too. I think that Wright, it sounds like, takes a lot of pride in his route running and his speed. And I think all those things that, for the last few years, you thought you were going to, or especially last year with Prieskorn being that more traditional guy, I think that, you envisioned him and Trigg as being sort of this nightmare, and it didn't work out. I think that what they have now, it's pretty scary. And again, we've talked about it, like in the receiver room, who can you double cover? Well, if you got 2 tight ends out there too, who are very prolific and very good, you literally have to pick your poison. Somebody is going to be open on every play.
Yeah, like I said, I do not want to put the cart ahead of the horse, but what made the 2022 Tennessee offense so good, what made the 2019 LSU offense so good, was the fact that you couldn't do anything. There was just really good players everywhere. And it's somewhere your number 4 cover person is going to be going up against the 1st round draft pick.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, again, the embarrassment of riches and, best laid plans, and we'll see how it all works. But I think when you look at how this team has been assembled, they have so many parts that seem to complement each other really well. And there's not like, obviously you have some overlapping skill sets, but look in the receiver room. Trey Harris is a very different receiver than Jordan Watkins, and he's a different receiver than Juice Wells, and Caden Prieskorn's a different tight end than Daquan Wright. And I think when you have all of these guys who do different things really, really well, you can put them on the field together, because it's not like they're going to be, excessively, doing the same stuff. Again, it makes it more dangerous.
Yeah. Tomorrow I did a podcast on basically 12 personnel. And one of my segments that I talk about, Ole Miss for the last 4 years, they've needed the gimmick, and the gimmick is tempo. They needed that for the offense to really go at a high level. I think Ole Miss is good enough to where they can Georgie you a little bit, and they can just do whatever they want to do. Tempo a little bit at a time. They can slow it down and do the 4-minute offense, go multiple tight ends. I think Lane has more toys in this offense than he has potentially ever had.
Oh, no, I agree with that. And it's funny when you look at the the plays run per game over the last few years, it's like slowly started to go down under Lane. And I think, again, it's like as you start acquiring the pieces, you don't need to necessarily fall on tempo. And tempo is dangerous, and there's no question. But like you said, is when you get more talented, you don't have to rely on that. And it seems like with this team, why not slow it down more and just impose your will and just do what other team, if you look at what Georgia's done to you the last year, look what Alabama's done to you. Do that to teams. You don't have to rely on getting, going warp speed and getting 85 plays in a game. You're talented enough to not have to do that.
Yeah, and the other player that you talked to today was Isaiah Hamilton, the cornerback that transferred from Houston over. I think the fall was his first time. He wasn't here in the spring. It was the fall, right?
Yeah, he was very late, if I remember correctly.
And he's another guy. One of the things that I've talked about is Trey Amos is obviously a really good man-to-man cover corner. What type of player is Isaiah Hamilton? What type of role does he have?
So it's funny. He actually said that he's more used to doing zone. And when he first got here, they were doing a lot of man-to-man, but now they've started doing more zone, which is, that's right up his alley. So it sounds like he's pretty comfortable. again, you can never have too many talented bodies at defensive back, especially corner, because, again, with pace the way it is, guys are going to get tired. Depth matters. The more guys you have, the better. But it sounds like, he came in doing more zone, but I think he can do it all now. And again, he's another talented guy who has a lot of starting experience. You can never have too many of those guys in that room.
So the way this is set up right now, there's a practice on Friday, which media will have access for. There's probably a scrimmage on Saturday, which media will not have access for. Mm-hmm. And then it's back to Monday and Tuesday and then off Wednesday like that.
I think actually I have the schedule right here.
Okay.
I actually should probably know this by now, but so let's see. So yeah, we've got I think we have access all 3 days next week, as opposed to like a game week where we only have access one day. So I think we're gonna get to see stuff Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week still.
Okay, and then whenever they're going to start classes and all of that stuff, they're going to do the ceremonial ending of camp, the closing ceremonies essentially. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. What have you got going on this week, bud?
A lot of really good interviews this week, particularly today. I wrote about Daquan Wright this week or today, and just sort of how he complements Caden Prescore. And I'm a big PFF guy, Pro Football Focus, and just looking at them and their snap counts in different situations was actually like very enlightening to look at the things they do and the plays they're in for. Again, Julius Beulow was an absolute like delight to talk to today. I think it was the first time we've talked to him. We talked to Kaleppo during the spring, but he had some really enlightening stuff about the size. And I think one of the questions was, what makes an offensive line really good? And he said the details. And, that's a broad thing to say. But then he said, the way you do everything is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And he said something to the effect of the way you do, the dishes is the way that you block wide zone. I was just like, that's just like, as someone who has to go wash dishes right now because my dishwasher's dead, I'm going to see if maybe that if I can now block wide zone. But I thought it was really interesting to hear him put it like that.
Yeah, pretty good. And let's see, I talked to Daquan Wright during the offseason. He actually came on my show. Good guy. Yep. He's a guy that was a high school wide receiver that grew into a tight end, and that's the reason that explains a lot of what he does.
Yeah, I think he's listed at 6'4", 255 right now, so he's got the size now.
Yeah.
He's a big
Michael, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
Absolutely. Thank you.